I feel like such a loser because all of these fantasy books are like so crazy popular and so old news, and like everyone's already read these, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to read them. Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Taylor, and I'm going to be talking about the 25 books that I'm going to read in 2025, and I'm so excited. I have all of them laid out here right in front of me, and I also have you stacked up on all of the books, well, most of the books that I read this year, so it's just really cool to look around and see all of these books. I'm truly in my happy place. This is actually incredible. I'm just on my bed. I just thought that we could just chill and talk about books for the upcoming year because it's definitely a cozy vibe. Let's just get into it. These are all books that I physically own. I do have the Kindle Unlimited app, but I'm trying to read more of the physical books that I own because I have a lot of books that I own and have not read. So one of my big reading goals this year is definitely to tackle my physical TBR. Everyone say hello to Princess Penelope von Froglebet. She's been through it, but she's my queen, and she's gonna read our books today. Anyway, so I have a lot of books that I have not read, so I won't be buying a single book at all, period, for the first 3 months of the year, which is kind of scary because there's definitely a couple books coming out in January and March that I know that I really want. We'll see, but I'm gonna try and not buy any books. I want to say this year, but like I don't want to commit to putting that into the universe because I love buying books. I just want to clarify that I am well aware that my blush and my highlight is absolutely insane for this entire video. I was using new products before I filmed this video, and I figured out that some of my products do not mix well, but I was too lazy to take it off. So I hope that it's not too distracting. Let's start with fantasy. I'm in my fantasy era, like, okay, I'm being introduced, and I think these are all, like, great books to start with. I should say fantasy and dystopian. I have been really wanting to get into fantasy and dystopian. I liked them a lot when I was younger. I liked fantasy. I never really read dystopian books when I was younger, but I've always loved them. I've always loved fantasy books, and I've loved dystopian movies and all of that, so I'm very excited to get into my fantasy era this year. So starting out with dystopian, we have The Hunger Games. I know, I haven't read it. I'm a fake reader. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm so excited to read this book. I know I'm gonna love it. Obviously, I've seen the movies, love the movies. My best friend loves The Hunger Games, and she knows like all of the lore, so she's told me all of it about all of the different quells and quells and the challenges and just everything. And I'm so excited to finally read this book and then just fully get into it and read all of her books. I'm excited to annotate the heck out of it because of all of the, politics about this book. On that same note, The Maze Runner, I don't even remember when I got this book. I think I got this at a thrift store. But I'm really excited to see this one. I haven't watched the movie, but I definitely want to watch it, but I feel like I should read the book first because it's always better when you read the book first because the book is better. Maybe I should watch the movie first then, so I'm not disappointed. Anyway, I'm gonna read this. I'm sure I'm gonna love it. I really do love dystopian novels. I read Shatter Me. I read the first 3 in the Shatter Me series like a year or 2 ago. They were good. Honestly, not my favorite ever, but I'm considering giving them another chance because I did like them a lot. So I'm excited to try out this one. Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I originally read the first book in this duology in I think 2022. It's called Dance of Thieves. This is the second book. It's a duology, like I said, and I absolutely loved it. Dance of Thieves is one of my favorite books. It's so fun. It's so sweet. It's a YA fantasy, so it's nothing like super intense, but there's so much world building. There's so much history there. There's just so much to love about that book. As soon as I read it the first time, I immediately bought this book. Literally went online as soon as I finished the other one and bought this book because I was so excited to read it. And when it came, I just didn't read it. I don't know. I mean, it's a big book. Maybe I was in a slump. I don't know why I didn't read it, but I didn't. So this year, I reread Dance of Thieves so that I would remember everything. And then I planned on reading this book, and I didn't. So I still haven't read the second one, even though I love the first one so much, and I would totally recommend it. I'm very excited to read this one and see how the duology ends because I loved the first one so much. She has 3 other books. It's a trilogy, and it's all in the same universe. It's called the Remnant universe. And I've heard some people say that you have to read the other 3, otherwise you'll be really confused in the duology, and at least for the first one, I can tell you that I wasn't. I'm sure it would have helped add to the lore, and I would have noticed a couple more things, but you can definitely understand Dance of Thieves without reading the other ones, and I'd imagine you can understand this one as well. So very excited to read this one. I've been anticipating this for a good 2 years. Okay, Iron Flame. Okay, I read Fourth Wing this year, whatever you want to call it, and it was one of my favorite reads of the entire year. It was also like pretty much the first fantasy book I've ever read and like finished, and I loved it so much. I know it was crazy controversial, but like everyone loved the first one. But I've heard the second one, a lot of people don't like it, and I'm really scared, so I've been putting off reading this book, and like I just bought this book like 3 days ago because I was like, Taylor, you can't put off this book anymore. You need to read it, otherwise you're gonna forget what happened in the first one. And I'm just sorry, I literally read the back of this book and got distracted. I'm so excited to read this book because I loved the first one so much, but I heard a lot of people didn't like this one. I know that Onyx Storm, the third book, comes out in January, and the reason I've been putting this off mainly is because I hate reading a book that I know is going to end in a cliffhanger and then I know has another book coming and the other book isn't out yet, because then I have to wait, and I hate that waiting that I'm forced to do. So I've been putting this off because Onyx Storm isn't out yet, but now that it's coming out, I think I can read this one and then I can just put off Onyx Storm. Next, we have a bit of an interesting one, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, I know this book is crazy popular, been around, everyone's known about it, but I actually have read a good chunk of this book. Like, I have a tab in there. You can see that, like, one singular tab. What is that even a tab of? Oh, wait, why did that, like, call me out? Okay, anyway, I have read, I don't know how much of it I've read. I think I've probably read, like, this much of it at some point. But I soft DNF'd it twice. And I think I just wasn't in the right headspace. The problem was, and I'm gonna rant for a second, I think the problem that I had with this book when I read it, I think probably both times, was I was expecting it to be something that it absolutely was not, because TikTok makes this book seem like it's just a silly little enemies to lovers romance set in a fantasy world, but it's so much more than that. It's a political fantasy, there's so much going on, and that's awesome. Like, I'm so excited to read it right now. I'm very excited for this book, but I went into it back when I was like just getting into reading, and I was expecting it to be like easy, low romance, and that's not what it was at all. And I feel like TikTok definitely has a tendency to whittle books down to just friends to lovers romance, enemies to lovers romance, when there's so much more going on, and like even if the romance is like not even really there, and I've heard the romance is not even really there in this, and it's like crazy slow burn over all 3 of the books, which is fine because I don't want to, like with Fourth Wing, I thought the romance was too much at times. I was like, I want to hear about the story. Like I'm over this romance. Like I wasn't. I love them. They're so fun. But there was a little too much, and I wanted more of the actual like plot other than the romance. That's basically the exact opposite of what happened here when I first read it. But now that I understand better what it is, because I heard from the other side of TikTok that it was being mismarketed to everyone, and now that I know more about fantasy and I'm more excited to be reading fantasy books, I'm very excited to read this one for the 3rd time and actually finish it. Sort of on that same wagon is A Court of Thorns, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I have actually already read like 100 and so pages. My bookmark's gone. Oh no, it's right here. I'm on page 126. And I read this one, I started it in like October and then just got really busy, and so I didn't finish it. But my best friend absolutely loves this book. Her boyfriend is reading it right now and he's absolutely loving it. So I want to read it so I can be a part of the club. I know everyone loves this book, of course. I've heard that the first one, that it just gets better, and like the second one's better than the first one. I'm not like obsessed with it, but I'm definitely liking it. Like it's definitely like, I want to read more, I want to keep reading it. So I just need to get back into this one because I read it so long ago and then just stopped because I got busy. And by that same author, Sarah J. Maas, Throne of Glass, my boyfriend bought me the entire Throne of Glass series for Christmas, if you can see up there. And so I'm very excited to read this. I actually don't know if I'm going to read this one first or The Assassin's Blade. I haven't looked into like the reading order yet, but I do know that you can do tandem reading and like read 2 of them at the same time and switch between chapters and stuff. So I'm very interested in looking into how people read this series to see like what my best experience can be. Because I know my best friend also really loves this book. So lethal, loyal, legendary. In a land without magic, the assassin is summoned to the castle. She has no love for the vicious king who rules from his throne of glass, but she has not come to kill him. She has come to win her freedom. If she defeats 23 murderers, thieves, and warriors in a competition, she will be released from prison to serve as the king's champion. Ooh, this sounds really good. Okay, I'm actually really excited for that. The last fantasy book that is on my 25 for 25 books this year is Six of Crows. I know, I haven't read it yet, and I have both of them. I got the box set last Christmas, and I haven't read them yet because I know they're gonna destroy me, and I'm not looking forward to it because I know everyone cries like a baby at these books. And oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I know it's gonna be fantastic. Like, I know I'm gonna love these books so much, just like everyone else does. And I love the themes so much. I love, obviously, found family, but I also know it's like a heist novel, and I love heist novels. So I'm really, really excited to read this one, but I've also been putting it off because I know it's gonna be sad, and I'm not prepared for that because I don't hate sad books, like I will read them, but I'm definitely not someone who seeks out devastating books. I hope this book doesn't absolutely devastate me. This is gonna be so fun to look back at and like see how I'm reacting to these books before I've read them and then know how I feel about them after. I'm very excited for this. Let's get into some classics. I have 3 classics here. One of them I'm not sure if it counts as a classic. First up, Lord of the Flies. A classic. This one is obviously very well known, and I'm very, very, very excited to read this one. I've wanted to read this for a very, very long time, and I just recently bought it. Because I've obviously known about it forever. Like, my dad always talks about this book, but I have not read it yet. So I'm very excited to read this novel because it sounds really, really interesting, and the concept of, you know, just human behavior just at its core is so interesting to me. Next we have Fahrenheit 451. I love the title of this book, even though I totally butchered it. I think it's such a fun title, so I'm very, very, very excited to read this one, especially with, you know, everything that's happening in our world now. I think this is a great book to read. And this one, I don't know if this actually counts as a classic. I think it might be. I'm kind of too lazy to look it up right now, honestly. But I just didn't know where else to put this. So, this is The Book Thief. I've actually had this book since I was like 15. And I'm 18. So I don't know what we're doing here, but this is one of the first books I had, like, before I got back into reading, when I just had, like, a very small collection of books back then, and I still have not read it, even though it's something that I know I'm gonna love. I'm very interested in. One of my family friends got it for me because she loved it, and I haven't read it yet, and I'm so interesting. Literally the only thing, well, there's stuff in it, but the only thing the back says is, when death has a story to tell, you listen. And books about death always have me crying, like, right away. Like, if I open this book up and it's like, I died, I'll start crying. Like, I'll just bawl. It is 1939 Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier and will become busier still. Liesel Meminger finds her life changed when she unearths a single object from the snow. It is the Gravedigger's Handbook, left there by accident at her brother's funeral, and it is her first act of book thievery. But these are dangerous times. When Liesel's foster family hides a Jewish man in their basement, Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. In superbly crafted prose that burns with intensity, award-winning author Marcus Zuzik has given us one of the most enduring stories of our time. I'm very excited to read this book, and this is the year that I actually do it. This is the year I actually read this book. No, it must have been before that. I must have had this book since like 2019. And I've been putting this book off for the longest time. I don't know why. I think I just know that it's gonna crush me, and it's such a long book also, but like, I mean, it's really not that long, but I think I know it's gonna crush me, and so I've been putting it off just like 6 crows, but it's time to actually read it, and I'm very excited. I'm very looking forward to it. Romance books. Okay, I love romance books. Obviously, all of those shelves are romance. That entire shelf is romance books, and I've read all of those books, and I can't say anything about any of the other shelves in my bookshelf because I've mostly just read romance books, which is why I said I want to expand my taste and read so many more books this year. But a girl's gotta have a little romance, okay? So I have 2.5 books here that are romance books that I'm very excited to read this year, and I just got 2 of them. So, the first one, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This book has been crazy popular on TikTok. I mean, her other one, Just for the Summer, is more popular, but her as an author, she's been blowing up recently. And I read Part of Your World by her. That's the only book I've read by her so far, but I heard that one, these ones are kind of like interconnected-ish. Kind of, I think in the same way that like Emily Henry books are, where it's not really, but like kind of. Wow, very insightful, Taylor. I did like Part of Your World. I wasn't loving it at first. I think it took me like a good like 150 pages, honestly, to like really get into it. I don't know what it was. I just was just kind of like, I don't really care. But then when I finished it, I was like, this is beautiful. This is a work of art. This is a masterpiece. I felt the same way that I do about Emily Henry, not as extremely. Emily Henry is one of my favorite authors, but I will say that her books are a similar vibe when it comes to romance books. So there's a lot of different types of romance books, and theirs have a very similar feeling and vibe where it's not just about the romance, it's about being an adult and navigating complicated relationships and complicated feelings with yourself and just so many other things about life and not just romance. And it's more about how love fits into life. And I really, really love that about Emily Henry's books, and also that's how I'm feeling the vibe is for Abby's books as well, so I'm very excited to read this one. I don't even know what it's about, but I got it for Christmas because I know that I wanted to read it. Okay, this book is about a doctor who works with a guy that she finds pretty infuriating, so it's gonna be like an enemies to lovers thing, I'm guessing. But he ends up sending her a letter, and she starts to reevaluate how she feels about him. And at the same time, she is getting a divorce, and her brother needs a kidney, and the guy that sent the letter actually ends up giving her brother his kidney. So I would imagine that's where the story sort of starts to unfold, with the letter and the kidney and her changing feelings and all of that. So alright, next up, similar idea, but definitely very different at the same time, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I am very excited to read this one. I have to be honest, I read The Dead Romantics by her like 2 years ago, or whenever, I don't know. Yes, last year, would have been last year. And I like that one a lot, but I'm not a magical realism fan. I'm really not. Some people would probably think that I'm crazy for saying that, but I just don't really like it. I like fantasy. I like dystopian, I like real. I don't really like when they have like a little mix, but I did like The Dead Romantics. I thought it was done well, I thought it was cool. And so I'm excited to read her next book, The 7-Year Slip. I know she has another one out as well, a novel love story. I know this one is crazy popular on TikTok, and I didn't realize it was by the same author, and once I did, I was very excited, and they have the same sort of magical realism element to them. If you haven't seen this book on TikTok, it is about a girl who goes into her, she moves into her late aunt's apartment and then finds a man just in her kitchen, and she's like, well, what's going on? And then she realizes that he's from the past, 7 years in the past. Her aunt always said the apartment was a pinch in time, a place where moments blended like watercolors. She also said that love is never a matter of time, but a matter of timing. And Clementine fears she may be 7 years too late. So it's a little bit of a magical realism element. It involves, time travel-ish and all of that. So I'm very excited to see how I feel about this one. Okay, the other book I have in like the romance category, I don't technically know if this is more of a romance or just like a literary fiction book, but we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. This book is quite controversial, and I have never read a Sally Rooney book, so I am excited to read this one and see how we feel about it. I do know that there isn't quotes, which concerns me a little bit because I've never read a book like that, and I'm nervous about what it's going to be like, because I know a lot of people have really mixed feelings. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people don't care about it, probably, but I'm very interested to see which camp I fall into. Let's talk nonfiction. I have 4 nonfiction books. I did not read a single, I should rephrase, I didn't finish a single nonfiction book this year, so I'm very excited to actually, I keep saying I'm very excited. I'm so excited. I love reading. I'm excited for the new year. First up, let's say Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This book has been all over TikTok. It's been crazy popular. I bought this book actually before I started seeing it on TikTok because my friend told me about it, and it sounds really interesting. The cover's really pretty, and it's essentially just like a memoir, but with like Bridget Jones' Diary. That's what it says on the back here. I'm definitely ready to read my first memoir. I don't think I've ever read any memoir, so we'll see what I think. Next we have Head First, How the Mind Heals the Body by Alistair. I should just stop saying the author's names. You can read it. This book is really pretty. I love the cover of this book. The body keeps the score and all of that. So I'm really excited to read this one and see what I learn about the mind and the body and their connection, because that's something I'm super, super interested in. Next we have The Song of Trees, Stories from Nature's Greatest Connectors by David George Haskell. And I'm so excited to read this book. I am excited to read this book because I have been wanting to read more nature books. I went on a road trip with my family. I bought a whole bunch of books about nature because I was really connecting with nature, and then when I got home, I kind of stopped and lost that connection with nature. So I want to get back into it because I love nature so much, and I want to learn more about nature because that's one that's just like great knowledge to have, like amazing to know about that, but it's also something I care so much about. I care so much about our planet and, reconnecting with the trees and everything. So really, really interested to see what this book is about and what I can learn from it. I mean, it talks about a bunch of different trees, obviously, and I think that's going to be so, so interesting to read about. Finally, nonfiction, Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm excited to read this one. I think I'm gonna hopefully learn a lot and hopefully become a better talker because I'm not very good at talking with strangers. So I think I can learn a lot from this book. But I do love talking to people and learning about other people and hearing other people's stories. I'm so interested in that. And I just hope that this can help me talk more with strangers and learn more about strangers and make deeper connections with people, because that's something that I would really, really love to do in this new year. I should have been counting. How many books was that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm at book 19. And this book is actually a reread. I've already read this one, but Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson from the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. So I've already read the first one. I've also already read the second one, but I haven't read the third one yet, and I forgot what happens in this one. I don't remember a lot of the details, and I know I'm gonna need to know a lot of details going into the third one, and I really want to read the third one this year. I keep seeing spoilers of it, and I'm like, oh, I just need to read it. I just need to get over with. So I am going to reread this year so that I can actually read the other one and finish the entire series this year, because I love it so much. I love the first book, but I love the book so much. I love Holly Jackson. I read her other book, 5 Survive, last year, and I love that one too. It was so fun and such a cool concept. So I'm really ready to read Good Girl, Bad Blood. If you don't know what the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy is, it's a story about Pip, and she's a teenager in high school at the beginning of the series, and she tries to solve a murder in her town for a school project, but she ends up getting caught up in it, and it becomes kind of dangerous for her, but she really, really transforms as a character and grows a lot and goes through a lot of crazy things and mysteries and stuff. So I am really excited to reread this one and then actually read the third one. Next up, we have a book that I'm reading for my book club. I started a book club this year with one of my friends, and we're having such an amazing time. We've already read our first book, but our next book, our first book for the month of January, is Daisy Jones and the Six. I have read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising, so now I'm on to Daisy Jones and the Six. I wouldn't say like they were like my favoriteest books ever. She was not like my favorite author ever, but I did definitely enjoy the books. Like, I loved them. They were great. We're gonna read it all together, and this one will be done by the end of January, maybe February, depending on how the timing works out. Book number 21 is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I bought this book a long time ago because it sounded really interesting to me, and I just never reached for it, like, ever. And then I heard someone talking about it recently. I forgot who it was, but I heard someone talking about it recently, and they like re-sparked my interest in this book because it sounds so interesting. From what I remember, it's about 2 girls who both are white passing, but they're both black. They're both mixed, but they run away from their community, and they end up later, one sister lives with her black daughter in the same southern town she once tried to escape, and the other secretly passes for white, and her white husband knows nothing of her past. So it's about these 2 girls who are choosing to live their lives in 2 very different ways, and it just sounds like something that's going to be so, so interesting to read about and to learn about. Book number 22, Beartown by Frederick Backman. I've also already started this one, but I kind of soft DNF'd it because, once again, I was reading it during a time where I didn't really have time to really read, and so I started reading it, kind of forgot what happened, didn't finish it, but I know I'm gonna love it because I love him and I love hockey. This book is about hockey, but this is actually a trilogy. I only have the first one, I don't have the other ones. This book might be the book that makes it hard for me to stick to my book buying van, because once I read the first one, I'm like, oh, well, I have to buy the second one now. Oh, I love his writing. I love his writing so much. He's my favorite ever. This is a story about a town and a game, hockey, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship. The people we disappoint, even though we love them, and the decisions we make every day that come to define us. I love Frederick Backman stories. They have such incredible themes. They touch on so many parts of the human experience and our lives, and they are just so beautiful to read. So I'm really, really excited to read this one and to read this entire series this year. I know that I will because I love his books so much. All right, number 23. We're getting so close to the end here. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I used to call this the Nightingale, but it's the Nightingale because there's only one G, if you can see there. So I got this book from my mom from a thrift store. She picked it up for me, and I've heard about it all over TikTok. I've really been wanting to read it, obviously. I have not read a book by Kristen Hanna yet, but I know that she is really blown up and gotten a lot bigger like this year, and she's really popular right now. This book is also about World War II, and it's set in France in 1939. So it sounds like this book is about 2 sisters in France in 1939, just as Germany invades. One of the sisters, Vian, I don't know, I'm sorry. She and her daughter get kind of captured by the French, and by the Germans, and they have to make a decision about how to survive. And the other sister falls in love with this guy, but doesn't work out, and so as a result, she joins the revolution and tries to fight against Germany. So that sounds very, very interesting. It sounds like it's going to be a great book about the different choices that we have as people when we're faced with tough decisions, and to how to keep ourselves safe or to fight or what we have to lose. And so I'm just really, really excited to see how that pans out and how this story unfolds and the lessons we learn about human beings when reading this book. This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. This book is about a woman whose father is dying, basically, and then she wakes up like the next day and she's in the past. And her dad is more revitalized, more youthful. And that sounds like the kind of story that's going to crush me, because I think we can all assume what's probably coming, and he's probably not going to make it to the end of the book, which just sounds devastating and like a really hard read. But it is something I love to read about because I learned so much and I experienced so many emotions, and it's just a great reminder to be grateful for what we have and to appreciate everyone and everything in our life. So this is definitely a book that I can see myself putting off because it'll be a lot, but I can also see myself really loving it. The last book, the 25th book that I plan to read in 2025, take your guesses, it's a really popular book right now, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book has been so big, so popular. I actually bought this book for myself in paperback, and then my grandma bought it for me for Christmas in hardcover. So I gave the paperback to my friend who's been wanting to read it, and I kept the hardcover, which is not like, usually I don't do that, but this one is just gorgeous. I had to keep it. So I've heard so much about this book. I've heard that it's fantastic, and the blurb, it makes it sound like it's just kind of like a love story about some two like gamers, but I've heard that it's so much more than that, so I'm not even going to bother reading the blurb because I don't think that's what the story is really going to end up being about and what's going to make it so beautiful and impactful. So I really, really hope that I feel the same way a lot of other people do about this book, and that I am impacted by it so strongly. I mean, it ends right here by saying, yes, it is a love story, but it is not the one you have read before, which reminds me of a book that I read this year. I read it in 5 years this year, and it was, the end of that blurb was like, this is a love story, but it's not the one that you're expecting, and it definitely wasn't, and that book definitely stuck with me for a very long time. So I'm thinking this book might be the same, and so I'm interested to see how this unfolds and what everyone has been raving about. Okay, thanks for watching my video of the 25 books that I plan to read in 2025. They're all right here on my lap, as you can see, and this makes me so happy. I love these books. I'm so excited to read all of these and add them to my arsenal in my mind of all of the books that I've read. I mean, it's so great to look at a book and be like, yeah, I've read that, I know what that's about. It's such a amazing feeling, and I just love reading so much, so I'm very, very excited. As I keep saying, it's the entire theme of this video. I'm just so excited to read all of these books, and I hope that you have been inspired to read some more books this year. Remember that a reading goal is not necessary. You don't have to read 25 books in a year. You can read one book in a year and still call yourself a reader. You can read no books and still call yourself a reader. This is just something that I'm doing for myself. If I read all of these books, great. If I don't, I don't. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's just fun to talk about and look forward to. Ciao!